Brad Sham joins us, the voice of the Dallas Cowboys, and have you dipped your toe into any of that, Brad, and listened to some of the classic games? Because I've kind of enjoyed it.
Robert, I haven't. It's good to be on with you. I haven't. I'm very much enjoying the Jordan series, but I was just having this conversation with some family last night. I have not had even the slightest impulse to watch or listen to old games of years or decades gone by. Those games were played. I know how they came out. I love history. I love reading about it. Love watching about it, but I don't have any interest in watching or listening to an entire game that was played years or decades ago. I don't know why. I just don't. I'm looking forward to the next one too much, I guess.
And you know what, Brad? I'm the same way typically. I know what the result was. I mean, every once in a while, Sirius now, and I listen to a lot of their Big 12 channel because I get to hear the other guys in the league. I get to know what's going on other places in the league, and that's really my area of coverage. That's what I need to know about is what's going on in the Big 12.
What
And of
channel
course,
is that? I need to put that on my car radio.
375 is
All
the
right,
Big
I
12
need to put
channel.
that. I need to put that in my favorites.
Yeah, Ari Timken and Dave Archer, the former Iowa State Atlanta Falcons quarterback, do a morning show. In the afternoon, Holly Rowe, Gabe Eichard do an afternoon show. And then right now they've been replaying a lot of old games. And of course, I think we have a terrific league. I mean, Wyatt Thompson at K-State. Craig Way at Texas. Of course, the guy I work with on our broadcast, Dave Hunziker, I think does a great job. Toby Rowland does a terrific job with Oklahoma. I kind of like listening to other announcers, and again, you and Vern and guys like Al Wisk and Frank and those are the voices of my childhood. So whenever I hear those, my ears perk up. I will enjoy listening to some games that happened, back when. That again, these are the people that I learned from.
Well, now I don't disagree with you, Robert, about our ears perking up when we hear those voices. When I
You're just not going to do 3 hours.
2 weeks ago, I guess it was, or maybe 3, the snippet of the game that Vern did. In fact, I shot him an email right after that. I said, I forgot you did that. You're everywhere. Hearing those voices absolutely makes my ears perk up also, and it fills you with a great feeling and a wave of nostalgia if those people aren't working anymore. That part I agree with.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in your world, and we just got finished with a segment talking about what the future of college sports this fall may look like, and nobody knows. The NFL just had a virtual draft, which I think was a tremendous success, the highest rated draft ever, and that was easily predicted. It was people were starving for anything, and a virtual draft was right in the wheelhouse. But what are you hearing about NFL facilities, about next season? What are you hearing?
I'm not hearing very much because there's nothing to say. There are all kinds of contingencies and preparations being made, but it's not news to observe that everything changes so quickly, and the only people who really know anything are the medical people. So those of us in sports and media are at the mercy of the facts and the science. So the league, I know, is making all kinds of contingency plans, having put out a schedule, which they hope they can keep, but they're prepared to start it later or roll games from the front of the year to the back of the year or play fewer games if necessary. They're prepared for all of those things. I know the Cowboys are making, for instance, just for one team, they're making dual plans for training camps both in California and at the Star. and it all depends on what they can do, where and when, and what's involved. So they're making their plans. You know, we're sitting here not quite in the middle of May, and we're probably 75 days away from training camps starting. So it's time to make plans, but it's not time to do anything else. It's an odd time of year because there won't be any OTAs this year. Last weekend would have been the weekend the Cowboys had their rookie mini camp, and so they're having to do those things virtually. And I understand all about Zoom meetings and WebEx meetings, and I've been on plenty of those. I don't know what a virtual workout means. I have no idea how you do that, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of condition these players are in when they get their hands on them. But that's beyond anyone's control. So they're just planning for everything.
Yeah, I think I get virtual workouts. I think I saw an ad for that this weekend.
Oh, there's a lot of ads for stuff about
yeah.
things you can do right there in your living room.
Absolutely.
You think that's going to put them in condition to play football?
I don't know, but some girl that called herself a beach body
Yeah.
told me she could help me be a beach body if I would do a virtual workout with her. So
yeah, it'd take you more than one.
I think so. The funny thing
and that
is,
was not an aspersion. I've seen those ads too. I don't think there's such a thing.
That's exactly accurate. I had Blake Jarwin on a couple of months ago.
I've heard
said,
of him.
I want to come on with you. Yeah, but I don't want to come on until my contract situation was settled. Once it was settled, he came on, and when I asked him about the COVID-19, I said, okay, well, now the next step's get in shape. I said, what do you got? And he goes, actually, nothing. I'm going to have to go buy a weight set.
There you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You can jog on the street. The players who are wealthy enough, which is most of them, I guess, to have sizable yards, can put in conditioning stations that let you do short shuttles and things like that, and you can go run. But the position specific things that NFL teams, conditioning staffs have their players doing, and the lifting, most players don't have what they need at home.
No, and that's exactly what Blake was saying. And I want to talk about the new Sooner influence, but let's talk about Blake first because he's one of ours here in Stillwater, and kid from Tuttle that came in as a walk-on, and Brad, he was sensational. His ability to stretch the seam against a safety or a linebacker and go vertical as a tight end, and Coach Mike Gundy calls it the cowboy back position. It's a hybrid here, but he's certainly shown that in Dallas. And your impressions on him? He's a great kid, but he's a terrific football player. I think you're going to enjoy a long time.
Well, I love the young man. Let's start with that. As a person, I think he's terrific, and one of my favorites. And love his approach, and love his honesty in terms of effort and sense of reality and everything else. And he's been patient. His opportunity has come, and my sense, we won't know until we actually see him on the field, and goodness knows when that will be. But my sense is that in Mike McCarthy's offense, we will probably see the tight end be a little bit more like what you're talking about Coach Gundy's had. And I think Blake's got an opportunity to thrive. I think there's also going to be a place for the other Blake Bell, who they've signed as a free agent. And he's a much different kind of player, of course. And as everybody knows, up there, when he was at OU, he did a lot of different things, and he can still do some of those things. But Jarwin, I think, is probably suited to, and I'm basing this, Robert, only on watching the Green Bay tight ends and offenses when Mike was there. I mean, remember the Montgomery, the running back from Stanford, who became a wide receiver, and then he was both. And they've never had the big bruising huge blocking tight ends. They've made great use of the field stretchers like that. The veteran guy from South Carolina who caught the ball on 3rd and 20 in the playoffs against the Cowboys in what was it, 2016? I mean, that kind of player. And I think that Blake, because he is such an intelligent player and has grown, I think that he's got an opportunity to really fill a role. And then with the weapons they have around him at wide receiver and the pass-catching ability at running back, then I think it opens up things for a guy like Jarwin. So I think that he's got a great opportunity in this offense to really flourish.
Yeah, and he showed great respect to Jason Witten. Talked about how much Jason Witten did for him, and I know he appreciates following somebody of that ilk, and he knows what's ahead for him. You mentioned Blake Bell. You talk about the draft with C.D. Lamb, and I'm glad C.D. Lamb's anywhere but Norman now, personally. And then Neville Gallimore, who we saw him develop and become really good, and he'll have an OU alum teaching him there on the defensive line. But we kind of kid around a little bit. Jerry's kind of got the Dallas Sooners going.
Yeah, but don't forget about Reggie Robinson either from Tulsa. They're
That's
really
true.
excited about him, and I think that he's got an opportunity to jump in and play a lot, and it'll be a good battle. You know, there's a starting spot open. There's a lot of talk that they might move Awuzie to safety, and so there's a starting spot open. Really, the only corners, if they were to move Awuzie to safety, the only corners with serious experience that now they've signed a couple of guys who have been special teams players and journeymen in their careers. But Jordan Lewis, I think, is a good competitive player. I think this bunch will like him, and but he's not tall and long. He's very competitive. And then Anthony Brown is also a competitive guy who has been a good, solid player in the league most of the time. But Diggs and Robinson are going to have an opportunity to come right in and start and compete for a starting spot. I am, everybody's excited about Lamb, obviously. Everybody knows what he is. I'm really kind of fired up about Gallimore, especially after I've got some friends over there in Norman who said that he is one of the finest young men they've ever had come through their program. And when you put that with a high motor and the physicality with which he plays and the things he was able to do at the Combine, I'm a big believer in interior defensive line play. I think it gets a little bit overlooked, overrated. Dave Wanstead and Jimmy Johnson used to talk about building a defense front to back and inside out. I'm not sure that is not still the right formula. I think that these folks down here have not really done that very much. I'm very excited about McCoy and Don Terry Poe. My question is how durable they'll be over a 16-game season. So Gallimore should have an exceptional opportunity for a lot of playing time, and probably can play multiple positions. I mean, they've got a lot of things to be excited about. Now, none of them have done anything on an NFL field in a Dallas uniform yet, so they still have to do it, but there's a lot to be excited about.
No, and as long as they get the quarterback situation settled, which I'm guessing that's still the number one question around the Cowboys franchise, then you can get to this schedule, which honestly, Dallas gets to help open the brand new Stadium SoFi out in Los Angeles if things get started on time.
Yeah, I think that was always going to happen because Jerry was really instrumental in that ownership group getting the Rams and the stadium site. They were days away from going to a different site when Kroenke moved the Rams out there, and but Kroenke wanted that site in Inglewood, and Jerry was instrumental in helping get through the league that site and everything it could be. They're going to have It won't be this year, but a much expanded NFL network presence. They're going to blow that thing up, and it's going to be of LA movie quality, which it's not right now. It would shock a lot of people to see the facilities that the NFL Network works out of in LA. But everybody is excited about the schedule. People say, "Oh, well, they should start real fast." And I remember Wade Phillips saying in his, I'm pretty sure, introductory press conference as the head coach down here, when someone asked him about winning the division, he said, "We haven't got a football team yet," and that's exactly right. And this year, more than any, I think it's foolhardy to try to pick. I understand why people are doing it. There's nothing the hell else to do. But I think it's really foolhardy to try to pick games and records here in the spring when you just don't know what condition people are going to be in. I think that teams had less opportunity than they've ever had to do the due diligence they like to do on drafted players, and so I think there was more rolling the dice. And I don't mean here necessarily. I think they're very pleased with what they did, but I think around the league I think there's a lot of players who, like Diggs, they had him ranked 21st and he fell to 51. And they had Robinson up higher, and they had Gallimore, a second-round player, got him in the third. Almost everybody they drafted, they had ranked way higher. Well, I think there's a reason for that. People are rolling the dice more, and all of that, Robert, to me, leads to a great deal of uncertainty, which makes it foolhardy, in my mind, to try to predict a record, a schedule, game outcomes. I'm excited to see it, but I think there's a great deal of uncertainty to all of it. I do think that they have a team that can compete for the postseason. You look at the NFC, the one team got better is Tampa. And then, you got New Orleans, and you've got Green Bay and Minnesota, and you got a lot of good teams. Atlanta, who's on their schedule, there's a lot of teams that are pretty good. And so they should be in that bunch. They should be in there fighting for a spot in the playoffs. And if that is the case, then we'll see how well they do.
Yeah, I noticed you get to go back to Seattle again, and that's one of my favorite places to go, but not because of the trip out there. That's a long.
Oh, see, I love
the
trip.
haul.
I'm hoping that we actually get to go. I was on a show the other day. I can't remember where. And the guy said, "Well, that's a tough deal, and why do they always have to go to Seattle?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you something. You think there's going to be fans in the stands there?" Oh, I know. It was an event I was doing with Emmett Smith on Saturday.
Okay.
And Emmett was saying, "Well, why do we always have to go to Seattle?" And I said, "Well, it's just a quirk of scheduling." But I said, "Do you think what makes that a tough place to go? I mean, the plane flight's nothing. What makes it tough?" Well, it's that crowd. It's the environment. And I said, "You think there's going to be fans in the stands?" He said, "I do." I said, "I don't. I don't think in the fourth week of the year you're going to be playing with 75,000 or 80,000 people sitting together. And that changes that dynamic completely. That's another thing that makes it difficult to – I don't know if there's such thing as home field advantage anymore.
Yeah, and we could get into this, but journalism today, don't let facts get in the way of a story. We could be talking about that for hours because the journalism, the principles that we grew up on, they're not there anymore. It's fantasy. Fantasy football has come to journalism. Fantasy journalism. I mean,
yeah, I know. I'm not a fan.
And I'm talking. Yeah, I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen, but boy, you can sure find a lot of people that'll tell you.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great things about being now. That part of it, that part of it's not new. I mean, I remember being a kid. When I was a kid, I had uncles in Chicago who were Chicago sports fans, and they would tell you. And there was no internet then, but they would flat out tell you. And I think that's just the nature of being a fan. That's always been the case. Your granddaddy's granddaddy had, opinions, and that hadn't changed. That's just human nature.
No, but now a lot of people like to report those opinions, at least their opinions, as near fact, and
Well,
that's
that's
kind of
Twitter.
yeah.
That's
Hey,
Twitter.
we could go on, but let me tell you this: it's a joy to listen to you do games, and I want to tell you this. A lot of times when we revamped our broadcasts a couple of times to spruce it up, but when we do, there's one broadcast we always pull several of and listen to and try and pick the best ideas from. And it's always Dallas Cowboys broadcasts. You guys are on the cutting edge. You're not afraid to experiment. And a lot of the things you guys have done, we have pulled in and incorporated in our broadcasts. And obviously, Dallas Cowboy fans are lucky to have one of the greatest voices of all time as their voice. So I just wanted to let you know that,
Well, you kind of
and
say it. We
appreciate it.
appreciate it, and I will admit that we, as a group, we work pretty hard to try to keep those broadcasts fresh and relevant, and maintain some degree of journalistic integrity while being entertaining. And so I appreciate you saying that.
No, and you have to. We do it all the time because you're competing with television. And
Yeah,
Brad, I still enjoy getting in my truck on a Sunday afternoon and running errands and listening to the games rather than watching them.
yeah, I
I still
appreciate that.
enjoy that.
I
So,
appreciate that.
hey, Brad, appreciate it, and have a good rest of the spring, and hopefully we all get to do the thing we love here real soon, which is go back to actually talking about these games and describing them. But appreciate your time.
Amen, brother. Anytime, Robert. You know where I
All
am.
right. All right. Brad Sham, voice of the Dallas Cowboys.